Let's now bring in SABC News Correspondent in Washington, D.C., Sherwin Bryce-Pease, to give us the very latest on President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit. A very good afternoon to you, Sherwin. So ministers who are accompanying President Cyril Ramaphosa hit the ground running yesterday, it would seem, with visit preparations ahead of the President Ramaphosa as well as President Trump's high-stakes meeting tomorrow. Give us a sense, Sherwin, of the groundwork on ahead of that crucial meeting tomorrow.
Well, I'll tell you this, Unati. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the viewers at home. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach by the South African delegation. And I'll tell you this, the sense in the air is that they are striking a very positive posture here. They are very confident. Vincent Magwenya confirming that the president was looking forward to his meeting with Donald Trump tomorrow. But there's a lot of hard work that has gone on behind the scenes. I can tell you within the next hour, the ministers, among them Park Star of Trade, Industry and Competition, Kombutso Nchabeni, the Minister in the Presidency responsible for State Security, John Steenhuisen, the Minister of Agriculture, and of course Minister Ronald Lamola, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, are all going into a meeting to brief the President this morning. Within the next hour, we understand that Mcebisi Jonas has also arrived in the United States. So they will be briefing the President on exactly how to approach this meeting tomorrow. What there is also a lot of uncertainty about is how the format tomorrow will play itself out. What we have seen play itself out on live television screens is the sort of reality TV scenario where the president is invited or the guest is invited into the Oval Office, and then the media is let in, and then it's a sort of free-for-all in terms of questions and answers. That format has not been confirmed yet. We are hearing various options are still on the table, but once we get clarity, we'll then get a better sense of how this process might play itself out tomorrow. But certainly a very positive posture here, as the acting president, Gwede Mantashe, was speaking in that clip. He's quite right. No deals are going to be signed during this trip. This is the beginning of a face-to-face conversation. This is about a reset in the relationship. And what we understand South Africa is arriving with here is the potential for options in their back pocket, whether that means within the AGOA framework or outside of the AGOA framework. Is it just going to be a continuation of a multilateral trade deal, which AGOA speaks to, or is it going to be a new bilateral deal, as we've seen other countries come to the White House and offer this president? This is a transactional U.S. president. You played clips there earlier about his engagements on his last trip to the Middle East. Big deals were signed there in terms of Saudi investment in the United States, Qatari investment in the United States, investment from the United Arab Emirates. And so South Africa is learning from those lessons and will bring something tangible to interest the U.S. president with here in terms of building on the reset that they hope to achieve tomorrow and then taking that relationship forward. So it's complicated. It's fluid, but we're here to cover every detail as we get clarity, Unati.
And I want to just go back to just some of the utterances that the president's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, made yesterday. In fact, you were speaking to him, saying that South Africa will still likely to see AGOA extended, but failing which South Africa is ready to table an outline, he talked about, of what will be a new trade relationship framework. That does give us a sense, as you also rightfully said, Sherwin, that South Africa will definitely be pushing hard here on trade.
Let's take you back, right? AGOA was signed by Bill Clinton some 20 years ago. And it was there as an effort by the United States to expand economic relations with countries in sub-Saharan Africa, but also to address issues of poverty in the region. So using trade and investment as an avenue, a pathway to uplift that part of the continent. What we are now talking about in the White House is a president that is transactional, a president that is, that undergirds his policy with an America First policy, right? So, South Africa should approach this in the sense that Donald Trump is going to fight for American interests first. He's not too interested in the history of AGOA and, in terms of its inception and the reasoning behind that. It's a new day in America. It's 20 years later. And so at this point, still don't know if AGOA is going to be renewed. Despite South Africa hosting the AGOA forum a few years ago, we still don't know, come September 2023, 2025 this year if there is going to be an extension, basically based on the reciprocal tariffs that Donald Trump famously introduced a couple of months ago, but also how he's undermined existing free trade agreements within the region here. The free trade agreement that already exists between Canada, Mexico, and the United States. He has undermined that by the imposition of tariffs, undercutting the free trade nature of that agreement. So it should come as no surprise to the South African delegation or sub-Saharan countries writ large that AGOA is tenuous for now. And until you get confirmation from the US Congress, confirmation from the United States Senate, that will then be signed by the president into law for an extension, we don't know that to be true yet. And so, this is why the South Africans have been so well prepared in terms of coming with alternatives, coming with bilateral options, because that they want to ensure that the economic relationship continues, whether within the AGOA framework or outside of it. And so, dealing with issues of unemployment, dealing with economic growth that has been stagnant has to be the prescient issue facing this administration. And I'm referring here to the Ramaphosa administration. And yes, there are other vexing issues, the Afrikaner refugee issue, the allegations of genocide. That is peripheral to this engagement here. Certainly from the South Africans' perspective, they are very laser focused on trade, very laser focused on investment and expanding the relationship. That's why you have the likes of Park Style leading discussions probably in that background briefing with the president. John Steenhuisen, right? It's a $1 billion agricultural relationship that South Africa currently enjoys with the United States within the AGOA framework. But if we don't have AGOA, then that relationship must still expand in a bilateral sense. And I think these are the sticking points. These are the obstacles and the hurdles that the South Africans are seeking to circumvent or certainly jump above and keep running.
And Sherwin, just speaking about, sticky issues, we know, of course, this is going to be a very tough engagement, certainly, even if we have to reference other engagements in the Oval Office with other heads of state. Just speak to us then about, a lot of reference was made yesterday too about South Africa having to play this balancing act, standing firm on some of its principles, particularly, refuting the narrative of a white genocide here in South Africa, but also being open to business. That's going to be a tough one for President Cyril Ramaphosa, even though we know he's been lauded for his diplomacy and the way in which he engages, because also we know he has that background.
Yeah, and he has the ability to absorb a lot of pressure. I've interviewed the president many times. I've asked him many tough questions, and he has an ability to deal with those in the Ramaphosa way, right? And so I think you might see a few smiles. You might see maybe a shake of a head or maybe an outreached arm to get the president onto his side. Look, this is going to be a performance by both presidents, especially if you have the world's media in the room and the cameras are rolling and the lives are being beamed across the world. Do not underestimate the impact that speaking to your own constituency has in moments like this. Donald Trump has his constituency, President Ramaphosa has his constituency, and they will be watching very carefully for the president to balance, right, the rhetoric around we will not be bullied, but also the bigger picture here. The economic relationship is very important to South Africa in the economic and unemployment sense and lack of growth sense that I've spoken to. So the big picture here matters, but also the truth matters. And I think the way President Ramaphosa delivers that is going to be instructive as to how this relationship moves forward. Donald Trump takes offense very easily, as you know. He can criticize, perhaps doesn't like to be criticized in return. So I think that will be a knowledge of import to the South African delegation. And I think how President Ramaphosa navigates that, I don't think we should be too concerned about it. I think he's done that in the past and will do so again. The point here is, what do you leave the White House with? What generates success? What will success look like for the South Africans here? It'll be convincing the United States once and for all that they're wrong about genocide in South Africa. Let's deal with that. They've tried to deal with it, but really about how to move the relationship forward, whether it be in terms of South Africa's foreign policy positions. There are concerns around South Africa taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. They've made it very clear that that process is ongoing. They will not be backing away from it. So that has to be dealt with and set aside. What you need to then focus on is the economic relationship moving forward, trade and investment with the United States, investment in South Africa, maybe investment into the United States. The critical minerals issue is the renewable energy future for the world, right? And so there might be some interest there from the United States, but this is a long-standing relationship. There are over 600 American companies invested in South Africa. There are implications were this relationship to go sour for business, for the economy, not only in South Africa, but the United States as well. So there's too much at play here just to forsake the relationship built on shaky facts that have kind of dominated the narrative so far. But if the media is allowed into that Oval Office tomorrow, there will be questions on that. Make no mistake about it. The president should be ready to walk and chew gum at the same time.
Absolutely. Sherwin, thank you so much for that update. Of course, we'll also be touching base with you a little bit later on in that briefing on the South African delegation engagement with the U.S. happening, I think, in a few minutes' time. But that was Sherwin Bryce-Pease, our SABC News correspondent in Washington, D.C., live for us, of course, ahead of that crucial meeting between Presidents Cyril Ramaphosa as well as Donald Trump